Hey guys, it's Daniel here, back with a Marvel Cinematic Universe review to catch up on what I haven't reviewed. And this one is the one that I was very mixed about doing the most, not because of the actual show, but because of what I was feeling like before watching the show. But after I finally watched the show, I am thoroughly impressed that I'm actually doing this. And that is my review of the Disney Plus Marvel Cinematic Universe series focusing on a new superhero, Moon Knight. So the plot of Moon Knight is actually a very intense and suspenseful yet comedic story about a man who deals with a multiple personality disorder. He has two personalities. One is Mark Spector, who he was before he got this disorder, and Stephen Grant, a very naive personality. And now this man must try to combine his personalities as he's on an adventure to find out about gods and getting involved in some god-like supernatural beings as he forces his personalities to join as he fights as Moon Knight. So, I mentioned earlier that this was like a mixed bag of a thing to do for my Marvel Cinematic Universe reviews, and the reason why is because I've been pushing off watching Moon Knight for a while and been pushing off this review. And the reason for that is because I didn't really see the huge need to go watch Moon Knight straight away. Don't get me wrong, it looked very interesting, it just never really came up my alley road, so I never really watched it when it first came out, of course. But, you know, I have to do the reviews, so I watched Moon Knight, and now I'm here to review it. And what do I think of it? I've misjudged you. I am so sorry. Because guys, I have to admit, I am extremely impressed by how much I really enjoyed Moon Knight. I honestly did not expect it to be this good. It's not the greatest thing ever in the world, but it is really good and had me totally shocked at how engaged I was in the plot. So, let's get into what I really like about Moon Knight and why I feel like it's better than I thought it was going to be. In my opinion, the best aspect of this series, hands down, was the performance of Oscar Isaac. He knocked it out of the park with his character. Or should I say, characters. As he's able to fully develop himself in both of the personalities that reside in the character of Mark. Both mentally, physically, and also just making his dialogue come off as very clean and awesome. By the way, he transitions between both his personalities. When he's playing Mark, he comes off as very mysterious, straight-headed, stern, but also make him come off as sympathetic because, you know, he has a past that nobody knows. And when he plays Stephen, he's playing him with fake British accent, which I have to say, his British accent is spot on. I listened to it and I definitely could buy that he would be a British man. But back to Stephen, he makes Stephen come off as bubbly and jittery, and he loses his words. I honestly don't know if that was I'm pretty sure it might be the character himself, but also if it was just Oscar Isaac getting nervous about playing this naive and energetic British character. So it's is this good? Is this a good British accent? Oh my god, I really need to keep myself focused in the role. But oh my god, but honestly, it fits well with the character, and it does seem like he's having a bit of fun playing the role of Stephen. Although I will get to it later, but Stephen was great, and Oscar Isaac as both his characters was spot on. And the bond between Mark and Stephen, the way that they represent their personalities together, is so great as well, because it can come off as very emotional and sympathetic, but also cheeky and naughty at the same time, because they make quips back and forth. And I liked the whole direction, whenever they see a reflection of themselves in a shiny plate, or a window, or a mirror, they're talking to each other, judging by the reflections, and I thought that was a great idea, and Oscar Isaac performs both of those characters very, very well, and his performance definitely carries the entire series. As for the other characters, they were very hit or miss. Most of them I like, and others were just okay, and some of them are just okay. I totally forgot they were in here. I mean, we've got the love interest of Mark, Layla. She's good for the most part, but a lot of the time she can come as very needy and a bit whiny and a bit of a prune some of the time, to the point where, like, okay, you need to chill out a bit. But, you know, considering what direction the character was going to, I can understand why she was acting the way she did, and she does get good development as the series goes on. But the one supporting standout character in the film, for my opinion, beside Oscar Isaac, I mean, well, actually, it's not very as big as Oscar Isaac, just when it comes to, like, the secondary characters, this one really stood out to me, is Arthur Harrow, played by Ethan Hawke. I think that Ethan gave, like, a great performance to this character, because the way that he talks, he walks around with his walkie stick and his cloak, and he talks with a very smooth texture. Even when he's having, like, a negative attitude towards something, he's always talking with a very, oh my god, you just ruined everything. I'm going to have to make you pay. And I like that little direction. It gives his character some very intrigue, and you want to know exactly what exactly this character is going through, and what exactly his motivations are. You know, you want to know more about the guy, and Ethan Hawke gave that great performance very well. The concept and story that this show goes into is definitely one of the most iconic and unique tales for a MCU project I have ever seen, because this has to be one of the darkest stories I've ever seen in the MCU at this point in time, because they have a very, very dark and mysterious tone to the story about a man dealing with a multiple personality disorder and has to go through some superhero qualities trying to help him control this disorder. And I think that they do a great job at adding some situations to this guy and having him go through very trials and tribulations, finding more about his past, of, like, both of his personalities going through the past trauma that they experienced, or at least one of them, I should say, and they go to some dark places in the story that I honestly was not expecting it to go. In fact, speaking of dark, I have to say that this is actually the closest element to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we've gotten to being a horror aspect, because they do some real good job at making us feel like, kind of like jiggery, and keeps us on our toes, wondering what is going to happen, that it gets very silent and all, and when it finally snaps, it pays off pretty well. I mean, it's not that scary, but it does get you, like, feel horrified inside, like your organs are just getting very mixed up and wondering what is going to happen next. In fact, this series actually has more horror than Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which we'll get to once I review the movie. And since we've got dark tones, it's going to have some very deep, emotional, tug at your heartstring moments that you just can't help but just feel bad for and sympathy when it comes to the characters, because it makes you want these characters to succeed and not lose their way. But that's not to say that the series is lacking in humour because of its heavy story, because it does a great job at mixing the emotional moments with some hilarious comedy, because I can't stop laughing at some of the jokes that these characters were telling, especially, again, whenever both of Oscar Isaac's characters are intertwining with each other and going back and forth with quips and all. And lastly, the action and visual effects. They were very good. I really liked the way that they handle all the, like, martial artists, making us... In fact, it goes through some very clever Egyptian type of style of fighting that I find very cool and interesting. And the visual effects, they're good for the most part. They're not the best visual effects like other MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, Disney Plus series. Definitely not as good as Loki, but it is good for the most part. And I like the way that Moon Knight shows up, the way that they handle his outfit. Like, whenever both personalities are wearing the outfit, they do some very clever details to change the outfit whenever each personality shows up, which, again, very clever, and I like the direction that they took these action scenes. Now, did I have some problems with this series? Yes, I did. One of the biggest issues I had with this series, and it's kind of an issue that some of the past MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, Disney Plus series have been dealing with, is that they kind of have the same effect of similarity. What do I mean by that? Well, while it is very original for the most part, it still has a bit of the same conflicts and same directions that they keep taking the story. Like other MCU Disney Plus series, they always have to have like a cult gang in the middle of it. There are a few too many villains, like some just being regular humans and others being like powerful beings. They always have to have a sidekick or I don't know. It just feels a bit like similar to some of the past ones, and I feel like, well, do we need can't we just like have a different type to take from a Disney Plus series? And speaking of direction, that then leads into another thing that I've noticed. Well, not extremely awful or anything. It's just something I noticed. Like, really? And that is, they have some pretty big over-the-top moments with Oscar Isaac's character. Now, his performance was perfection, but whenever Stephen Grant, his British character, is like screeching over the top, he does go a little bit off the rails, because he's always just like saying, "Ah, ah, 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 ah." And I get that is kind of Stephen's character. He's supposed to be like jittery and worried so when he loses his words, but his reaction to big moments of action is just a bit too like over the top, and I just like, okay, can we you need to take it back a little bit, man, come on. The next issue I found deals with some of the characters in the series. Some of the major ones and some of the minor ones. The minor ones I felt like didn't get as much attention I felt like could have gotten, and some of the major ones I felt like were a bit unnecessary and should not have been either in this series or should have been saved for like a sequel. The minor characters I felt like could have gotten a bit more attention was actually Stephen's museum co-workers, both these two right here. They have some pretty good interactions with Stephen in the beginning, so I felt like they could have had some more potential to like some of the conflicts and help Stephen to go through his metamorphoses, but it turned out not really. Like, the security guy, I felt like could have been like a good buddy and had some more friend moments with Stephen, and that annoying woman bothering him could have like learnt more about him and helped to like feel more sympathetic towards them. For me, you may think, okay, they don't need to be in there, but, you know, they could have had some more moments. And the major characters that I felt like wasn't very necessary and should have been saved for, like, a sequel, and it's really shocking to say, is actually some of the god characters. Now, some of the god characters were great. They had some very cool moments. But at the same time, they weren't even given that much potential to give, and I felt like could have been saved for another series. Like, the main conflict god at the end of the series, which I won't spoil, I felt like it was kind of unnecessary, because that's another thing. I felt like there were way too many villains in this series. I mean, we've got Ethan Hawke's character's cult, which, interesting, but honestly, I felt like wasn't really needed to give the big potential that it got. We've got that god at the end of the series, and we've also got that one god that Mark is contributing himself to. He's cool, but I didn't feel like he didn't get as much attention as they wanted to, and didn't really leave as big of an impact as they wanted. And if they wanted to make it as big of an impact as they wanted, why not make that character the antagonist? That actually would have made a very cool origin story villain for a character, because this is kind of like a bit too much to give for a character that's literally the first time that he's been introduced, so they need like a bit of a step up, not automatically jumped into big situations. And the last issue that I had with the series, and it is as an addition to the multitude of villains and potential wasted and too much of screen time, is that they keep giving hints to a character that isn't revealed until like the very, very, very end of the series. And while I find this like character's hints very fascinating, interesting, and intriguing and a bit refreshing, because I don't know if I've really seen a character like that in an MCU project, I asked myself at the end of the series, was the hints to this character that necessary? Did they really need to make a big deal of this character to begin with throughout the series? And I was taking a bit of a time to think about it, because at one point I said, well, maybe, because, you know, it's giving hints to, like, a future aspect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for, like, a sequel. But at the same time, I said no, because they could have just had this character show up in the post-credit scene and not have any hints throughout the series. And I went a bit, like, mixed about it, and I finally came to a conclusion. No. Honestly, if this character wanted to, like, be a big deal, just like that god, why didn't they make this character the main antagonist? Honestly, I felt like this character should have been more of a main antagonist than any other antagonist. This character should have been the main antagonist, because, in my opinion, it would have been, like, a great way to be, like, an origin superhero story villain. But I guess they just wanted to save it for a sequel. But honestly, if they wanted to save it for a sequel, just save it for the mid-credit scene. Don't constantly give hints to it, because it doesn't really lead to anything in the final confrontation. So, honestly, that's really just, I don't know. But guys, besides those issues, I can't deny that I had a pretty good blast with Moon Knight. I honestly did not expect it to be as good as I was expecting. I thought it was just going to be like, it's pretty good, not the greatest though, but it came off as intriguing, it came off as worth taking for, and it's all because of Oscar Isaac's performance as his multiple personalities. He does a great job at differentiating them, and is honestly the thing that carries the series and makes it even more better than I was expecting. And I will give this series 4 stars out of 5. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it, it's definitely worth the wait, and I could see it again maybe one day. But anyway guys, what do you think of Moon Knight? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And what is a Marvel Cinematic Universe series or movie that you didn't expect it to be as good, but you ended up finding it really great? Let me know in the comment section below. And some more Marvel Cinematic Universe things to review in the future, and more movie reviews. Anyway, I'm Daniel reviewing movies, TV shows, doing videos. Till then, peace out, man.